Hi, my name is Jeannie, and this is Bisaya in America. I haven't been posting on this podcast in a while. I took a hiatus from it, just resting my brain and doing something different. Using my brain for other things like writing my book. And I do notice that people are just listening to my podcast for some reason. Some are in North America and some are in random places. And I think one time, like, I had a listener in Russia. It was kind of weird. Anyway, I'm pretty sure there's Filipinos in Russia. But it's not just for Filipinos only. It's for people who want to gain a different perspective on life. Anyway, a Filipino perspective. So, if you are Filipino and you're listening to this, comment or write me after. But do you agree that when you're Filipino, it's like you're a member of a secret society or a special club or a secret club? We're like the Illuminati. So basically, Filipinos, we are scattered all over the globe. My uncle, who was in the military, he's retired now. He said that even in Afghanistan, like, there literally were like Filipinos, and he said they were like flipping burgers. They worked at a Burger King or something like that. And he said, like, in all corners of the world, there's Filipinos. And I gotta agree. So we went to Europe like several years ago. And I think we were ordering in this random food court in Barcelona. And the cooks were Filipino. And it's so funny when you're Filipino and, you know, when we're in the Philippines, like, we don't care about each other. Like, it's like, yeah, I don't care about you. Like, yeah, you're just one in 100 million, you know. But when you're outside of the country, Filipinos are actually very friendly to each other. It's like, you know, I guess we're just glad that we found like someone from the same country, and it's always like conversation is like, oh, you're Filipino. Taga saan ka sa atin? Or where are you from in, you know, the Philippines? And then it's usually, you know, by region, and then we always mention like, oh, I'm Tagalog, or I'm Bisaya, or I'm Ilocano. It's always like that, you know, but the main thing is everybody speaks Tagalog, and like 99% of the people speak English, or at least can understand English. So it's strange when we're outside of the Philippines. We just like, we love each other. It's like brotherly love, and it doesn't matter, like, especially if they find out that, oh, you're a visitor here in this country. It's pretty funny, but you're gonna be invited to everything. I think several years ago we went to Belgium, and we met like random Filipinos that was introduced by a fellow Filipino as well. And we were just invited to everything. We were invited to their homes. You know, we slept in their homes. That was the first time they met us, and we only know each other because we were introduced by a fellow Filipino. And then it's like, you know, like I tell you, it's like a secret club. Once they know you're Filipino, it's like, yeah, you're invited. And you know what's so funny about Filipinos? They're very open. We're open-minded, but generally we're very open. Like, it's like, and you can quote me on this one, but it's like literally within 10 minutes you know the entire person's family history. So it's funny, like in Belgium, like, so we were invited, right, to this Filipinos' homes, and so we had free food. You know, that's our language too, food, feeding someone, and we knew where they came from. Suddenly, like, we know about their history, how they got married, and everything, like in 10 minutes, and they even told us about their like their marriage and then their husbands and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, like it's too much information, but that's how Filipinos roll. And yeah, and I just met another Filipino here in Texas area. I'm not gonna reveal where exactly in Texas, but anyway, and then within just like 5 to 10 minutes, there was like the story of their life, like where they went to school, where they came from, what language they spoke or speak, and then what happened to their family, and then, their family, like what their children does for a living and where they live. And that is in 5 or 10 minutes. And it's just funny and it's amazing. Like we're just like an open book. Yeah, and it happens everywhere. You meet a Filipino, oh yeah, where are you from? What language do you speak? Oh, okay, or the dialect. And yeah, like I have like 10 brothers and like, yeah, one's in the Army, Navy or whatever. And just literally in 5 to 10 minutes, you have someone's like, like the summary of their entire life. They just summarize it in 5 or 10 minutes. And yeah, and I remember when I was younger as well, and this was in the Philippines, so I have like a nanny. She's still with us, and she was just one of those people too. She's like snooping around, and same thing, like she will, and she's gonna be a good spy. Actually, if she works for the CIA, she'll probably like give them a run for their money, because like she can like actually produce like great information. So she's one of those people. When she talks to someone, she gets their names, where they came from, and the story of their life. And it's so funny, and that's so Filipino. And I think she also revealed like, oh yeah, I work for this family, like I've like ever since she was a baby. Like, yeah, she was my nanny when I was like, I don't know, a month old, and then she just stayed with us for years. And she became my brother's nanny, and now she still works for us, like cooking and doing like chores and stuff. But that's so Filipino that, like to reveal everything, and then before you know it, especially here in America too, you meet one Filipino and then you meet a clan. I literally, when I was in New Mexico, and my gateway or whatever, like to this like secret club of Filipinos was just one person, and this one person introduced me to 100 Filipinos. It was so funny. But that's just it. That's the Filipino life. And we're kind of, we stick together. And if you don't stick together as Filipinos, you're on your own. You're like, yeah, it's pretty sad. Like you're an orphan basically. And which is like what happened to me in a way, but I always, for some reason, always find Filipinos. So I was floating around, like, I lived in the Northeast, East Coast, and then I moved to the Southwest. And for a while, I was floating around and, just doing my thing, like working. I was traveling for a living. And it feels weird, like, okay, I'm disconnected from my people. But then for some reason, I always find Filipinos, even if like I don't intend to find Filipinos, they just find me or I find them. And just that one Filipino will unlock a whole army or a whole clan of Filipinos. And it's happened everywhere else. Like when I lived in Denver, so I met this Filipino, and then I was introduced to her family, and then she introduced me to fellow Filipinos, and that was my gateway to Filipinos, Also in New Mexico as well, like 2 different groups, and I was introduced, and then I was introduced to an even bigger group. And here as well, for a while, I was floating for maybe a year, almost a year, like during and after the pandemic, around that time. So I was introduced to a one Filipino, and this Filipino introduced me to a whole clan of Filipinos, and now I have Filipino friends here, and it's just it's just how we roll. And in New York too, um, this is pretty remote too. My first like job assignment was in upstate New York in the middle of winter, and I kid you not, for some weird reason, like one of the people or the staff that worked in the nursing home or building that I worked at, one of them was Filipino, and then she was like the gateway to her whole clan, and it was nice. Like they helped me, and I kind of miss them too. And for a while, I think for a couple years, like we exchanged gifts, and then I kept moving around and bouncing around, and I just lost their information. I might have to look for the information. This was like 8 or 9 years ago, so it's a long time ago. But yeah, like I was like exchanging information with them too. So yeah, and in New Jersey too, I think I was connected to a Filipino, and then that was my key to be introduced to more Filipinos. We're just like that, secret society, and you can actually gain favors. Like if there's just one Filipino in one building, then suddenly you have access to all the, you can get VIP treatment if you're Filipino. And I know like people that are Filipinos that are listening to this, you can definitely relate. So we are like the Illuminati. We're like a secret society, like a really cool club. And once you get introduced to one member, you get introduced to all. And yeah, and for some reason I just keep finding Filipinos, and I can't explain it. So earlier this morning there was just, I was at a client's home. I do healthcare. Anyway, and I just had a feeling the person that opened the door, I'm like, oh, I think she's Filipino, but you know what? I'm not going to say anything, But she also saw me, and I think she had that surprised look on her face too, like, I know what she was thinking. Like, we were both thinking that she's probably Filipino, but I could be wrong, And then the moment she spoke, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely Filipino. And then I was just quiet, and then eventually I'm like, you know what, are you Filipino? And I really wanted to ask her for the longest time, and then boom, she was Filipino. And in like 5 or 10 minutes she gives me the story of her life, and that's just us, And I think I'm the same way too, like with the other Filipinos. Like, you'll definitely just know my history. We're really good at that history. And another thing I'd like to mention, if you're Filipino or if you're friends with Filipino, we're the best people to approach during a zombie apocalypse. We literally are. And the reason why we are the best people to approach during a zombie apocalypse is we have a lot of food. Filipinos have preserved foods. Like we have the the tuyo, which is dried fish, which can last for years. I don't know, decades probably. You'll never go hungry. And we grow our own vegetables, or if not, we have like a lot of canned goods, spam, right? And we just literally have a ton of food, and we'll never go hungry. If there's a Filipino that goes hungry, that person is an anomaly in our country. No Filipino goes hungry, because we just have food. Except when you're really, really like destitute, like really, really poor. But even then, you still have resources. And my grandparents and my mom's side of the family, they were farmers. So even if they didn't really have food, they could cultivate the food. They had vegetables, they grew vegetables, and there's always a can of sardines that you can probably like make utang. Utang means to what you call that? I don't know. In English, I think it means like on loan. It's like you can go to a small store. It's called a sari-sari store, or sari-sari means like mix or something like that. You know, it's a mix store. It has everything. And it's like a convenience store or gas stop here in America, but it's smaller. And you can actually, like, if you know the owners, you can say like, hey, can I borrow this one, but I'll pay you back in a month. So that's called utang, you know. And there's no interest, except, I don't know about some people, maybe they do, but usually it's not. There's no interest as long as you pay it in a month, or as you know, a few weeks. It's usually a month for some reason. Yeah, so Filipinos always have a lot of food, and we never go hungry, and there's always resources, and you can always borrow money to buy food from any Filipino, and we usually eat a lot of canned foods, you know, which isn't really healthy, but for some reason, yeah, if zombie apocalypse, you know, we have everything, preserved stuff, pickles, vegetables. We have everything. And what do you call that? So I'm looking at my notes because I'm like lost. So the Filipinos, everybody, you know, everybody here in America, when they say, oh, you're Filipino, I know someone who's a Filipino, and then they always like give me food, and I've tasted pancit or lumpia, you know, or adobo or lechon and stuff like that, or siopaw. You know, siopaw not so much, but usually like lechon, adobo, or lumpia and pancit. For some reason, they love the lumpia and the pancit, and the adobo maybe, the barbecue chicken maybe, but it's always the lumpia and the pancit. For some reason, it just appeals to them, to the Americans. And for some reason, though, the Americans, or any foreigner for that reason, they always think that all Filipinos are related. Like, you know, because I had coworkers, and then like, oh yeah, we know like a bunch of Filipinos, but there's just one person, this one Filipino. And do you know this Filipino? I'm like, I don't think so, but I can try. But they always assume that we know each other, or related to each other. But I guess if you dig deeper, dig deeper. My Filipino accent is coming out. If you dig deeper, you will find that, yeah, we probably are related, you know, and we're a friend of a friend, or a cousin of a cousin. And I found this out, like how related we can be, because like I was living in New Jersey several years ago, and before I left, you know, like I was like parked in a really tight spot, like literally the a-hole in front of me and behind me like boxed me in, like you know, parallel parking. I literally had less than like 5 inches wiggle room, and I was so upset, you know. But there was this woman, and she helped me, and she looked Asian, and like she helped me get out of that spot by like directing me, like she would say reverse, front, go to the front, and like eventually I was able to, you know, get my car out, like drive away from that like tight space. And I found out after talking to her that her husband, so I was introduced again. So I eventually met the whole family, and I found out about her life story. So I was invited to their apartment, which was just maybe several doors down. It was like really strange. We just find each other for some reason. And anyway, so I started talking to her husband, because like we were, you know, we started asking like, oh, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, you know, from this region in the Philippines. And the husband mentions like, oh, I come from this place in the Philippines. It's in Maykawayan or San Miguel. Um, it's in Bulacan. So it's a province in the north. And after like talking to him for a few minutes, I realized that he was actually the kababata, or like the friend, the childhood friend of one of my relatives. See, we're all related. And it's so funny. And I'm like, oh my God, like, this guy, he's like one of our, like, I think he was my uncle or my distant cousin. And then this random guy, and whose wife I met like a few days, before that, and who was I was introduced to, he was actually the childhood friend of one of my relatives, and that's just amazing. And he lived next door. I think I also got his information, but I lost like all of the numbers in my phone for some reason. Like when I transferred my phone over, I just lost all information. And I used to write things down before. I just lost that too. I've just been moving around so much, and I got disconnected from that too. But who knows? At least I know where they live. But yeah, it's funny. So I know it's not right to assume that we're all related, but if you dig deeper, we probably are related. And yeah, and another thing that I noticed, like, so the coworkers I had before, they knew a Filipino, and then they said like, oh, most Filipinos are nice, they said, except this one guy. They said he was like an a-hole. I'm like, dude, like, why are you telling me that? Like, I don't even know that guy. So they were assuming that I knew this guy that they said was an a-hole, but who was a Filipino. And I felt like so weird, but I felt responsible for his behavior for some reason, because most Filipinos were, we go under the radar. We don't want to attract too much attention to ourselves. We're just like, peaceful people, and we want to get along with everybody. But apparently this one Filipino wasn't nice, so he wasn't the norm, because most Filipinos are really nice. I, as a Filipino, I'm not biased, we really are. It's just part of the culture. If you're not nice, like, you're shunned. Even in a family, if you're not nice, like, everybody in the family hates you. So yeah, we just are like people pleasers, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's a positive thing, nowadays. Yeah, but this one guy that my previous coworkers talked about, like, they said like, oh, he was an a-hole, he had an attitude, and like apparently that's not a Filipino thing, because we're not, like, most of us anyway are not arrogant. We're just like, as I said, like, we're just gonna walk under the radar. Like, we don't want to be detected or like have like too much attention on ourselves. And we just want to abide by the rules and the laws. And we're law abiding people, and it's very rare to find like a Filipino involved in a crime, because their families would like hurt them first, before they do something like out in the wild or in society, right? If you're Filipino, I'm pretty sure you agree. So anyway, okay. Yeah, so that's just my podcast for today. I'm sorry. I just like, I just realized we're really quirky people, but yeah, don't, if you agree with me, write me at homeofgenie@gmail.com. And you can ask me questions too. I might answer that on my next podcast, because I'm running out of ideas, guys. And thank you very much for listening. And yeah, I may talk about the quirkiness of being a Filipino in the future. Okay, but I don't know. I just find it funny. Okay, and remember, zombie apocalypse. Befriend Filipinos. We're gonna save you. We have a lot of food. You know, you'll last. Um, we'll make sure everybody survives. Um, we'll live for like ideally 10 or 20 years. You know, so yeah, we're the best people to call, or like, yeah, just get introduced to one Filipino, and that's your gateway to like an entire clan of Filipinos. Thank you for listening. Know that the ride or die. Know that the ride or die. I keep waiting on my seat. Know that the ride or die. I keep waiting on my seat. We hustle, what's the line? Waiting on my seat. Know that the ride or die. My name came up a lot of sounds. More when I was not around. Certain people that I know, they ain't no longer about. My name came up.